Hey there, fellow farmers. Rhadamant here. Thank you for tuning in to Songs of Syx, Episode 6, Sowing Orchards. So, planting the fruit orchards. Just a little reminder, I know I mentioned this already. You have fruit farms, which yield fruit sooner, and fruit orchards, which yield fruit more efficiently and with less reliability on soil fertility. So this is fruit orchards. They're also laid out differently. So if I lay out my fruit orchard, like let's say let's run a road where it's going to be. So I'm going to smart remove this planned road and actually build the road. So I'm going to remove the planning and actually build the road. So the fruit orchards down here, you lay them out, but they operate a bit differently in that you have to then put trees in. And definitely use the planter because one tree fills up, as you can see, fills up a 4x4 or 16 unit. Whereas if you plan them out like this, they overlap a bit. So you can get far more trees per spot doing the planting. And I want like a mega orchard. Right from the get-go. So that we are very, very well fed. So some of this area can't be the same sort of density, but that's fine. Okay. This will hire about 13 farmers, producing a ton of fruit. There we are. Now that alone isn't going to be enough. We are going to want roads around it. So this road, some of the planting zone needs to go. This part of it. So we can actually build the roads. I'm going to surround the entire orchard with roads, even where the water is. You can build roads like over water, it's no problem. You just can't build farms in the deep water. And then we're also going to want the fruit storage. So I'm going to build fruit storage here where it's less fertile. I don't want to take up the fertile zones for warehouses. So just the way we did the grain silo, we're going to have a apple silo. And I'll put that right here. That'll work. And this will be probably one of multiple fruit orchards. I want so a single orchard can suffer blight or diseases. So what's used, instead of having one like jumbo farm, it's nice to put multiple eggs in multiple baskets and have multiple fruit orchards. This will be like one of a few. And this fruit orchard will not yield fruit for like a few years. It will take a few years to have the trees actually mature. So it's not going to be particularly useful to feed us until like, right now we're in year 3, 4. It won't be really useful until like year 7. Meaning that we're going to be reliant upon foraging for a while yet. Plus, this thing needs 180 fruit just to start. So we're going to need to forage 180 fruit from the wild apple trees in this area just to start this orchard. But once this is running, this thing is gonna feed us big time. So high investment, high yield. You didn't realize you could build over water like that? Yeah, you can't build over deep water like that. So I'll just demonstrate. Like if I did a fruit farm, you can't build over deep water, but you can build over shallow water. Because shallow water you can remove, right? If you try to remove deep water, all you're really doing is sticking stones on it. I guess I could demonstrate that in one spot. I just don't want to demonstrate that a lot. So, it's... Oh, they can't even get there. let me try that again. Remove water. So I'll do remove water from shallow and deep so you can see the difference. I think this is shallow. And this is deep, yeah. So the odd jobbers will get around that, and you'll see. There'll be one little spot of grass and one little spot of a stone once it's done. We are heading towards forge time, though. So, I also want to make sure that my odd jobs are, you know, foraging. Which means this orchard I might cancel. And remove the task or suspend the job. I'll just suspend it. So that my odd jobs can forge. So, because well, let's see. I'm going to delete the wood cutting because I think we've cut enough wood for now. The woodcutter's about 40% supplied. So I'm going to unsuspend this and then resuspend it once... Oh, I meant to hit activate job. Resuspend it once it's forage time. Okay, so little spot of grass and a little rock. That's what it looks like when you remove water over deep water. It doesn't actually make it usable. So I'm going to add water back in here. This was just a demonstration. I like it. I like this little town center. It's cute. Janitor, carpenters, delivery men, food vendors, speaker, delivery, merchant, odd job. So yeah, the people that work here live here. And as a result, why I do that is not just strictly aesthetics. If we take a look at their access to stuff, like this specific person's access to a shrine or to shopping, it's rather high because they don't have to travel very far for it. So once we see that okay, it is forge time. So suspend jobs, all of this, and send the odd jobbers out to forge. I'm also going to furlough the carpenters from 12 to 4 so that the carpenters can also become odd jobbers and forage for us. So now we're collecting the wild grains and wild mushrooms and fruit because we only have 7 months of food. And this is we're gonna have to rely upon forage for about 3 more years until the fruit orchard is done. Although we should be in positive grain now. Yeah, we're net 9 grain per year from the farms. Meaning that I can employ maybe 2 more bakers to make bread for consumption. Oh, mushrooms already got. Where are they? They're already getting the last of the fruit. Wow, my odd jobbers are like way ahead of the curve this year. Yep, they got all the cloth or cotton. They got all the fruit. They got all the veg. Okay, cool. So the odd jobs are done. Foraging. As you can see, my supply of food is now over a year, which is exactly what I wanted to be. So let's activate the jobs to rebuild or to continue building the fruit orchard. They're probably not going to set... So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to the access, and I'm going to say don't eat fruit right now. And the reason I'm doing that is so that we can reserve the fruit to put into the fruit orchard, because otherwise they're just going to eat it and and then we won't have the fruit to actually build the fruit orchard. And then I'll have to remember to re-enable fruit once the fruit orchard is sown, because otherwise we're just going to be stockpiling apples for no reason. But I think that's probably the right plan, so that we actually can start this fruit orchard sooner. Because we're going to need a hell of a lot of fruit to kick it off, because I made a big one. Now, there's an argument to be made, which is build a little fruit farm to produce fruit quickly in order to seed the orchard. And I think I'm going to do that. I don't think that that's necessarily a bad idea. So I'm going to build a temporary small fruit farm adjacent to the orchard as like a fruit nursery. That way we have a little some apples that will then turn over and become an orchard. And I think what I'll do is suspend the orchard to make the fruit farm nursery. And it says the apples aren't obtainable. Is that because they're in my fruit stalls? So I'm going to the fruit stalls out here, and I'm removing the apples so that they're available for the fruit farm construction. Because even though I disabled the consumption of for access to fruit, that change didn't ripple out to the fruit stalls. So the fruit stalls were locking my fruit into the stalls rather than fruit farm. So now we have a fruit farm, and then with that fruit farm, I'm going to reactivate the orchard. These grain farms are they're planned. They're active, but they're planned. Oh, and as I said a little while back, the southern grain farm was higher fertility, and it would eventually be higher yield, and it's already higher yield. So that's yielding 203. This one's yielding 177. What's going on right now? It's snow. Or moisture. It's rain or snow. It's a bit of both. Because it's like 0 temperature. Alright, this warehouse here is supposed to be apple warehouse. I copied the grain warehouse, which is why they put grain in it, but I'm just going to remove the grain and open it up to apples. And then we'll just have to move the grain that I kicked out of there to this silo, which I'll hire a delivery person for. And I'm assuming now that we're like partway into winter that all of the stuff from foraging got collected, and it has. Meaning that I can go to my general warehouse and go, hey, furlough. So we're going to get tons of wood from the construction of this fruit orchard because we're clearing a whole bunch of trees for it. And what else got built? Oh, yeah, the shrines. So if I take a look at the my Cretonians' access, they have good food, no one's starving. For services, they have almost perfect access to speakers, decent access to hearths. What they lack is upgraded hearths, which I don't have, so they have perfect access and proximity and quality to hearths. The upgrade is something that we'll get into later. So the hearths and speakers are great. Food stalls. It's just missing upgrade, so it's perfect. Wells, it's just upgrade, so it's perfect. Markets, it's proximity is 98, so it's close to 100%. So it's good enough. The markets could be a little bit closer, but it's fine. Cool. So surfaces are awesome. Road preference. This is just like they would prefer cobblestone over dirt, so that's fine. Bench access could be a little bit better, so I could add a few more benches. Harmony could be a bit better. Roundness is almost 100%, so that's fine. And noise sucks, but that's because we don't have metals. And I mean, lighting. Noise is fine. Noise isn't really affecting anything. So let's take a look at the noise map again. I didn't mean to hit screenshot. None of the houses are noisy. Yeah, none of the houses are noisy. So taking a look at the harmony map, only my like my living centers have trees. So what we could do, because they did ask for a few more benches, is add some benches right here in the courtyard. Add some benches around the warehouse, or let's put benches around the throne room, and then let's put trees around the throne room too. And put some trees along the road up to the wood shop. Put some trees along the road. Smaller trees. Maybe eventually we'll go back and make them bigger trees as things get more grand around this area. I'm not going to put trees around the farm. I don't think it's hard to plan for, but we do actually have a pretty wide road, so I could put some trees along the road, which is why I did a 3 wide road because it allows for that. And I could also put torches once we have metal and get some benches in there as well. All right. The life is pretty good. There's a lot of people, a lot of immigrants that want to move in. I'm just not going to accept them until food scarcity has been better resolved. Hey, our woodcutter is woodcutting now. So as a result, we have an income of 16 wood per day estimation, and our carpenters and bakeries do not use it all. So we have a net positive 6 wood. Awesome. Okay, the orchard's almost fully cleared. The fruit farm's still not really yielding yet, but soon the fruit farm will then help to supply the orchard so that the orchard can get going. I prefer, if you're wondering, why I haven't ramped up baking. Grain only spoils about 12% per year, whereas bread spoils at 50% per year. So only really bake as much as you're going to eat, because if you overbake bread, there's a possibility later on to turn the bread into rations so that the rations don't spoil, because rations only spoil about 5% per year. But rations require a lot of manual labor, so it doesn't really make sense to make tons of bread only to make rations to preserve it. Just don't make it into bread in the first place. So that's some of the theory behind how little food I'm baking. And I do see that we have about 10 months of food, but we're heading into spring, so I think we're all set to avoid starvation. The fruit orchard's also almost 100% cleared, and then we can start stockpiling the apples to sow it. Fortunately, the fruit, and this is true of any farm, the materials set aside, and actually this is true for everything, the materials set aside for the construction of something does not spoil. So the apples that we set aside for the fruit orchard won't rot. Unless I'm mistaken, I don't think they rot waiting. So like the 23 apples that we set aside for the fruit orchard won't just like rot as a result of sitting out, because they would normally rot at 50% per year. But chat, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that is the case, which is nice, so that you don't, like, it doesn't become impossible as you have to amass a certain amount in order to get things going. All right. So we do not yet have stored furniture, because I think there's still some beds or benches yet to be built, but we're starting to get benches here. So if we take a look again at surfaces and access, markets are now 99% proximity. Environment, benches have gone up. Taking a look at the path usage, I don't see anyone walking anywhere but the roads that I've built, so that's a good sign. Look at the harmony map. As you can see, it's pretty harmonious everywhere now with the trees that I sowed everywhere. So people are going to be pretty happy about that, I think. Maintenance. It does seem like one more janitor might not be a bad call. So I'm going to increase my southern janitor from 1 to 2. And I'm going to call this farm janitor. And then the other one, woodcutter janitor, or carpentry janitor. Just as a reference as to where they physically are. Because it's going to be hard to remember, like, where's janitor 1? Where's janitor 2? Because, yeah, it looks like there's some degradation. Not a lot, like 5%, 6%. But, you know, some improvements could be made. Some maintenance. And especially as the fruit orchard gets built, we're going to have more maintenance down here. Some of the other tabs that I haven't shown is, like, awe and dread. This is about obedience and you know, you can... It's kind of more late game. But later game, you get into education, and education can be like enlightenment or indoctrination. So once you start building things like schools and universities, you can decide how you want to, whether you want like a loving subjects or obedient subjects. I'm not going to really touch upon that until we get there. But we have homelessness. So this just shows you your empty housing, your full housing, etc. You know, resources is, I don't even find particularly useful as an overlay, but it will show you where your physical resources are. But once you zoom out, it will show you anyway. Saltwater is, I don't think, relevant here because I live on a lake, not on an ocean. So this is the world map. Actually, it should be the ocean. No, I live on a lake. Yeah, I live on this little lake here, the nation of Kadath. And then this is ocean. So these are my neighbors. And I really haven't had any contact with the neighbors. So there's Magichin, 250 Dundorians. There's Storknati, 300 Dundorians. And Krokland, which is 500 Dundorians. And then further out, there's some Talapi. There's much larger empires of Talapi. A larger empire of Dundorians. A quite large empire of Talapi. Humans. Rothenheim. And then the closest Cretonians to me is... I don't even know. I'm like very alone. Here's one. Idichin, or Idich. Here is some of my own people. Same down here. They just named it Colony with a K. They're not very educated. But yeah. Luckily, my people get kind of along with the Dundorians and the Talapi. I could show you that again. If I go to the... So, the Cretonians most get along with the Dundorians and Talapi and a little bit with humans. And that happens to be who my neighbors are, so that, I suppose, is fine. There's a 1% chance that, like, my people will believe in Shamalorism, but most of it is just craterism. So, and here's their food and drink pref. They prefer wooden buildings over everything else. They like the outdoors. They like forest plazas and cobblestone roads and furniture and this is their entire like map. So they really love food rations, service fulfillment, furniture, lavatories, shrines, temples, taverns, etc. There's a lot of detail. A lot of detail. But, yep, there we go. All right, let's get back to it. Urbanization, which, you know, is not even worth looking at because I live in a rural agrarian societies, but it would be essentially housing density. Space, where there's open space and where there's not. Workload. So workload is a really useful one. So, like, for instance, this delivery man literally isn't doing anything, so I could fire him. You can try to constantly min-max your workloads, but I do find that it's actually not, like, for instance, the markets and the food stalls. Yeah, they're not doing anything, but firing them means that those facilities don't do anything. So yes, the food vendors here sit around all day waiting for people to buy food, and they aren't really doing very much, but firing them doesn't make a whole lot of sense either. So it can be useful when workloads to look at things like production facilities, like the carpenter or bakery, because if all of a sudden your bakery or carpenter goes to zero, there's a problem. You don't have access to raw resources, or the internal storage is full. There's some sort of issue. But the workload overlay isn't always perfect, because yes, like a lot of the times people working in warehouses or food markets and the like won't be doing very much, and that's kind of normal. Path usage I've shown a ton, but I really like path usage for laying everything out. Mountains are useful to see the mountains. I have mountains to my north. Harvestable fish, so on and so forth. I'll get into it once we're doing more of that. All right. So we've got a fruit farm as a nursery for our orchard. While I work on the orchard, because right now there's really not much to do for the orchard, let's think about alternative projects. So what else should I do while waiting for the orchard? I could build a tailor. So the tailor can use fabrics, but in order for me to gain access to fabrics, I would need to research weaving, which I don't have yet. So weaving's over here to build a crude weaver. So the tailor that I would build would be a leather tailor. So build a tailor would probably couple with an auroch pen, so that we start ranching aurochs for meat and leather. Oh, well, we can ranch anything. We could ranch, so I wouldn't even necessarily say aurochs, but one of the reasons I picked aurochs is I think due to the warmth of my map tile, aurochs are a little bit more efficient. But Entelodonts would be good for meat. The Globdians would be good for eggs if we want eggs. Onks could also be in lieu of aurochs. Yeah, so either aurochs or onks would be good for textiles. Of which I don't really care. Onks are maybe a little bit more tame. What is the accident rate for each? 0.1%. And 0.01%. So onks would be a little bit safer. So I'd probably go with onks. So build a tailor and onks pen then. Alternatively, I could sow more grain fields. I think those are the two most obvious to do. So you can pick between those two goals. It's pretty limited because really early game, like, your needs are mostly lower hierarchy of just food, shelter. I forget where it shows the regional bonuses for the pens. I'm pretty sure because we live somewhere where warm, the aurochs have a bonus here, but the onks might also. Is that it? I think it's down here. Yeah, the aurochs and the endldants have a regional climate bonus. So aurochs are a little bit more dangerous than onks, but they would get a bonus. So maybe I would do auroch pen instead. Just because regionally aurochs are more accustomed to our climate here than the onks. They just might trample me, but you know, risk versus reward. What is a citizen but someone to live and die for the glory of your empire? All right, what are my free jobbers doing? My free jobbers are probably not doing very much of anything. So let's have them cut down some trees. We have room for more wood. Why not? And then once the forge season rolls around, I'm obviously going to want to be forging the hell out of especially fruit, so that this orchard can actually get off the ground. So it looks like a pasture is going to be worth it, and I'll have you guys decide between the regionally bonus auroch pasture, which also runs the risk of accidents, versus the endldant pasture. The disadvantage, actually, you know what? I'm going to go with auroch, only because if we're considering a tailor, the aurochs yield leather, whereas the endldants don't. But the onks would be... Well, no, I'll have you vote. What animal to ranch? Aurochs or onks? So aurochs are more dangerous, but there is that climate bonus that we're going to get. The onks are more tame, but there is not a climate bonus. I'll leave it up to you. Both would help with a tailor. And I think what I'll do is I'll probably end up building their pastures over here. Adding to this area. Building a tailor over where our carpenter is, rather than down here. Even though it's meat. Right, 1 minute to vote in that poll. And thank you for voting. Alright. I think auroch's gonna win. So, auroch pasture. Taking a look at the map, I'm gonna build an auroch pasture north of this village. There are trees to the west, so I'm going to build a pasture sort of here. Maybe a pretty large one. Seven workers? No. Actually, that might be okay. I'm going to put the gate here to it, and I'm going to open up a pathway to get there. And then a hut inside, which is just to increase the efficiency. This is going to require a lot of wood, and I'm likely going to have to suspend this this project. Yeah, I'm likely going to have to suspend this project in lieu of foraging. Are animals loud? They are, but this is it's not going to produce noise, I don't think, through a double-walled living area. And the other thing we're going to need is the actual tailor, and then a warehouse for both meat and leather, which is what the aurochs produce. Is this set up to store furniture? It wasn't. Good call. That's why I had no furniture produced yet. The internal storage of the carpenter was only 11 of like the whatever 50 or something that it could store, so it wasn't backed up. But I added a warehouse now for it. This land was very easy to clear, and the aurochs don't really need, like, the herders that you hire in here, they don't need to be on the water. Like, there's not a lot of need for it. What do you do with the meat if they're vegetarian? Well, we're not obligate vegetarians. We're selectively omnivorous, so, like, Cretonians will still, or Cretonians rather, will still eat meat, will still eat eggs. Hell, they'll even eat each other, you know, if you're starving. So we'll eat the meat. We just prefer to not eat meat. But if you take a look at the properties here again, it should be somewhere in here of food preferences. So we have a food preference, but we have a massive dislike of cannibalism. But apart from that, they're not going to hate eating meat. They hate starving a lot more. So if, you know, they'll add meat to their diets, they'll add eggs to their... In fact, they like eggs. It's not part of their food preference, but food variety is a big driving factor of happiness too. So even having access to meat and eggs and things that they don't necessarily prefer drives up food preference. And then at some point you'll get like restaurants and things like that, which increase the need for food preference and food variety even more. But getting ahead of myself. Thank you for tuning in to Songs of Syx, which originally streamed live on Twitch as a marathon November 23rd. If you have any questions for me, let me know in the comments below, but please keep in mind I'm not looking for feedback. This episode was cut from a marathon, and the marathon was streamed one time only, so feedback cannot be incorporated. If you would like to join a live stream of mine, Rhadamant.com has my stream schedule and countdown timers to upcoming streams, and if you would like to join my online gaming community on Discord, Rhadamant.com has a link to it, as does the description of this video. A link to my Patreon page can be found there as well, if that interests you. Thank you so very much for watching. A special thank you to my Patreon patrons, Twitch subscribers, and viewers like you that support the channel and made it all the way to the credits. Thank you so very much. I hope to catch you next episode or an upcoming stream of another game. Farewell, my fellow Cretonians.